what?
Anything.
Um, I need help with like my Notion.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that on a put some
Okay.
time put some time on my calendar for a consult. I put the link in the chat.
Okay. All right.
All right. All right. I am about to start recording. All right, let's go. So this session, this is our introduction. This is our introduction to SQL, introduction to databases. I start from the floor because with that, it helps leverage your understanding all the way around. The objectives of this session are DML languages, which is the data manipulation languages, filtering your data, ordering your data, and I'm also going to introduce you to data relationships, and we talk about data types as well. I say introduce you to data relationships because every last session that we're going to do, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to hone in on it because I want to start challenging your thought process to be hyper visible and hyper aware of data relationships and how they exist. Because some of you have taken, I know Nicole, you've taken Power BI. Some of you have taken other tools and other skills, and Priscilla and Kiana, y'all take it in the future, but that understanding is gonna help leverage your, it's gonna help you be better really in all the space of data in its entirety. Um, so let's get into it. So introduction to SQL. What is SQL? SQL is the language that you use to communicate with databases. It is number one within the space of data analytics. If you are in the space of data analytics, you have to know SQL. It's the top three skill for the space of tech in general, leaning in from cyber engineering to cybersecurity to software engineering. Everybody pretty much has to know SQL within the space of tech. It's the language that we use to communicate with the database. Now, I know one of the primary benefits of SQL is to retrieve, update, and manipulate data. This select, insert, update, and delete. This is actually the core components of SQL, and it triggers into what we refer to as those DML languages. I'm gonna post it in the chat. So if you want to look it up, you can. It goes into what is referred to as DML language, data manipulation language. If you are using SQL, you're doing one of four of these things. You're either selecting data, inserting data, updating delete data, or deleting data. You're doing one of those four. Another core component of SQL is like that data manipulation. Like I was saying, it gives you, once that data gets into those tables, which I'm going to talk to you all about tables and fields and columns as well. But once that data gets into those tables, your job as an analytic professional is to be able to retrieve that data. If I have this data in this table, it doesn't hold a lot of value if I can't do anything with it. So therefore, one of those core components of SQL is the ability to manipulate that data, do your data analysis. Another component of SQL is the ability to have your data defined. When your data is stored within tables, if they're on-prem or in the cloud, wherever your data is stored, that data has to be defined. Basically, if an organization is storing their data, it's not just randomly dumped in there. There is a level of data relationships and data integrity and things like that. They're not randomly just putting this data out there, because if an organization does that, it really does not hold a lot of value, because you have things spread out everywhere. You don't really understand how to create relationships with these data sets. And if you don't know how to do that, you're not going to be able to perform your analysis. So one of the key components of SQL is that ability to be able to define that data and keep it structured in the way that it needs to be, so that you know how to appropriately leverage that data. Any questions on that? Okay. Oh, I thought you were gonna say something, Kiana. Okay. All right. So, introduction to databases. What is a database? A database is something that stores data. And when I say data, a lot of times we think of numbers or uh, you know what? All of y'all in healthcare, now that I'm thinking about it. But we think of like numbers, we think of any of these things that first name, last name, etc. However, data can be in a lot of different types of formats. I have a job. When I say job, I'm meaning like a task or a migration job that I do that requires me to upload images and requires me to like change the format of the way that those images are stored within the company's database. So I have to run my scripts to like change their formatting. So your data technically can be stored or can come in a lot of different formats. And at a high level, a database is something that stores that data and gives you the ability to go and retrieve that data or edit that data. Why are databases important? So this goes back into what I was talking about with your organization and your structure of your data. Databases allow for your data to remain structured, organized, consistent. You just can't be dumping stuff over there. Like if your organization is just dumping data into a database or a data lake or whatever the case is, and it is not accessible, it doesn't make any sense. It's not going to be a lot of value. So the purpose of those databases is to keep everything consistent, everything organized, and it supports that data integrity. It supports that integrity because it has certain quote unquote rules that you are supposed to go by in order to store that data. Another benefit of databases is that data analysis and reporting. A lot of times when you are responsible for data reporting, whether it is through Power BI or Tableau or some other ad hoc reporting tool that your organization needs or uses, the back end to that data connection is typically it is a database because that data has to be stored and structured in a way that you can use and leverage. By the time you get to the side to where it's the data reporting, it's pretty, it's organized, it's clean, but on the back end is what y'all are about to get into. Another benefit of those databases is that data organization and management. That's when you get into your data governance, your data transformation, your data warehouses. Whenever you start having conversations with that language is made possible because at some point that data is stored in a database. It's stored in a database. When I store my data in the database as an organization, there are certain rules that I have to do and maintain in order to protect, quote unquote, the integrity of that data. Is this data accurate? Is it clear? Is it relevant? I also have to protect that data in a way that for my data governance, for my data architecture is when you lean into like those data relationships and those data dependencies and things like that, or even quality control. Like I said, a lot of y'all are in healthcare. You're in those spaces to where your data has to reflect certain things and it has to quote unquote be protected, supposedly. It has to be protected. And that is why I oftentimes like tell people that it's a high level overlap between data and cybersecurity. Because when you look at what cybersecurity is protecting, they're protecting assets. They're protecting these things. And one of those very valuable assets is, hey, Jackie, one of those very valuable assets is data. So if your data is stored in those databases, it gives the ability to be able to have a level of protection, period. Another main component of those databases is the data sharing and collaboration. When you get in your role, there are times to where you and your colleague might share scripts, or you and your colleague might y'all have access to certain data or certain analysis, and it allows for you to be able to share that data globally, just like tonight or today rather. All of you have your own environment, all of you have access to your own database. But as you have experienced within your current roles now, or have you experienced within your roles when you get in the future, you and your team will have access to those same databases. Y'all will be collaborating, and it might be times to where y'all are working like on what we call work sessions, and you probably do something similar now, to where y'all are actively trying to solve a problem and y'all are working together. I share my screen, he or she'll share his screen, and we kind of just work together to solve that problem and be collaborative. And that work can be done because of databases. We got that data stored in a database somewhere. Any questions? All right. So one of my this is like one of my favorite parts to talk about, because with you all transitioning into the space of data, we talk about SQL. We're learning SQL now. Um and there's also a huge conversation piece about cloud and migrating to the cloud and data centers and servers and all that other stuff. And I oftentimes get questions regarding learning SQL and how that relates to different data environments. So let's talk about the different but the way that that data is stored and processed, that's what changes, that's what makes the difference in databases. And I get that question a lot. And that is why your skills that you learn now is going to help you all the way around in the space of data, because they are easily you can leverage them anywhere basically. Like for example, just yesterday I think I had an interview and it was for a data engineer, and they were migrating the big task or problem that they solving. They're migrating from the legacy data systems to quote unquote Snowflake. I have done work in Amazon Redshift and no, they're migrating to Google GCP. I've done work in Amazon Redshift and Snowflake, but they're migrating to Google GCP, which is a cloud system. So with that, I still have the ability to leverage my experience from to migrate into Snowflake, because Snowflake is a cloud system and so is Google GCP. They the same, but they different. So with that, it's like, okay, there it's a little difference here, but it's not enough difference for you to be like, I don't know how to do this. And the way I think, Kiana, I think you and I were talking the other day, and the way that I always explain it is it's no different. The way that they will be slightly different is, for example, how you might do something in Excel and then get in Google Sheets. And it's like, oh, Google Sheets a little different than Excel, but it's not enough for you to get over there and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's just like a slight variation between like proprietary clients and things. So I oftentimes like to talk about what makes those databases different, and with you learning these skills, are you still going to be marketable in a space that is cloud driven? And the answer is yes. And it's because that skill is that skill all day long. Any questions regarding this? Kiana?
Wait, I'm glad you said that because I was just about to say I have a question.
Mhm.
So, with you having, I guess, some that's stored on the actual computer and then some that's stored in the cloud, is the SQL language that we learned like the same across all different types of platforms?
So the dialect might be slightly different. And I'm gonna explain to you what I mean by that. I'm a southerner. You hear it all in my voice. I'm having a conversation. Oh, okay. Okay, that's Priscilla. If I have a conversation with someone that is from New York, with someone that is from California, we're all talking the same language, but we sound different. So that dialect might slightly vary. It might slightly vary, but the underlying concept and the underlying language is not going to change. For example, in Oracle, I think Oracle, so I've written code in SQL for like 12 years now. 70 to 80% of my time has been in T-SQL, which is Microsoft's tool. Up until currently, I'm still in Microsoft. And that is a question that you could ask in your interviews as well to try to figure out what their tech stack is. Because if they have a Microsoft shop, they writing code in this. But throughout my career, I've written code in Amazon Redshift. Like I've been in organizations where they use Amazon Redshift. I've been in organizations where they use Oracle. I've done work in a SQL Workbench. I've done work in like a lot of different places, and underlying, they are all the exact same.
Okay.
The reason also that they're different is because when you think about it, so when you think about it, Microsoft produced our SQL server that we currently use. That's Microsoft all day long. That's their product. Then you got Google come and they like, oh, we producing a product too. So Google go come and they're going to produce their SQL their language as well, to the ability to do code in SQL as well. But they're not going to do what Microsoft does because they never do. They're going to do some little Google stuff. Same way with Amazon. Amazon, you like, you know what? Y'all doing this, we're gonna do it too. So Amazon go and produce their product, but they're not gonna produce what Microsoft and Google did. It's the same, but it's just gonna be just a little different to say this is ours and it's y'all.
Okay.
Yep. But that's a good question. And when you, another question, just a little note, if you are in a position to where you have the expectation to migrate systems, like let's say we migrating, like you said, on-prem and we're going to the cloud, that syntax, one of the first rules of like leading a data migration is to compare that syntax and see what are y'all doing over here, and let me make sure that I'm able to do it over here in the same way so we can keep that data consistent. So, yep, in short.
What does the term on-prem mean?
On-prem is literally, I got this notepad. I got this notepad. My table is premises. It's on premise. I'm take this notepad. I'm gonna put it on prem. It's literally on that table, on that system, on that computer. It's on. It's downloaded on that computer. You got your apps on your phone. Your apps on your phone, quote unquote, take up space. When you run out of space on your phone, if you got a Apple, Apple go text you and say, "Hey, you want some more space? We'll give you some more space in the cloud." But you ain't got no more on your phone. On-prem is on the actual device.
Okay.
Yep. Good question. And that's a verbiage you'll probably hear as well if you are like, I don't, yeah, we'll talk because I think you finna get into this. But we'll talk. But that's a verbiage as well that you'll hear when somebody says something is on-prem, it's on that machine. It's there. It's taking up space, it's on that machine. Any other questions? All right. Good. I love it. Now we finna get to the fun part. So, okay. So retrieving data. I oftentimes talked about, well, I have talked about how in this session we're going to start talking about data types. Data types, data types, data types. Because as an analytic professional, I want you to start thinking of doing your own data research, doing your own your own data investigation. Because when you get your role is to solve a problem. Your role is to come in and say, okay, well, this is what is going on. This is how this data looks. And when you're doing your data investigation, your data type attributes a huge part of it. And the understanding of data types is going to help you all the way around. For example, in Power BI, if I am doing a certain visualization, I can't treat a integer the same way that I would treat another data type. Excel the same way. Python the same way. They all are very different, but they all are very similar. You have to treat a data type like it is. So let's talk about that. Data types are used to define the type of data that's stored in that column. So we said databases, the primary purpose of that database is to keep that data organized. It's to keep that data structured. A part of the ability to keep that data structured is the ability to define the type of data that that table can house. If I don't define it, people will be putting anything anywhere. I've been in an organization where they have been. And as you navigate the space, and have you been over here, you probably seen something similar and probably just didn't recognize it. But that data has to be defined by that data type. Now, when we're looking at a syntax, a block of code is called a syntax. When we're looking at this syntax is creating a table and it's giving you your table name, but it's also giving you your columns that are in that table, but it's also defining those columns. It's saying customer ID, integer. Basically, nothing in this field, nothing in this column can go in here but integers. First name, last name, varchar, varchar. That's the data type. Can't be no more than 50 bytes. Birthday. No other data can go in here but a date. Registration date. Nothing can go in here but a date. So you're telling it what type of data can go in that field or in that column. Do you need to memorize data types? No. Do you need to be able to look at them and recognize what data type is in each table? Yes. Because that is going to help you know how to write your code.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So I've like seen some of this in other languages, but my question is, if say for instance, if you were inserting something into a table, right, and you're doing it in the birthday column, like you call that birthday column and you try to insert into,
Yeah.
does the system spit back a error if you try to put like an integer instead of a date? If you've already defined it, it has to be a date.
Yep.
Okay.
It ain't gonna work. First of all, Kiana, come through with your language. I hear like I hear a lot of stuff, but it's gonna throw you an error every time. Because what it's gonna say is it's gonna basically throw along the lines of, baby, I don't even recognize this. So compare that to someone, you speaking a language, this person speaking a totally different language, and y'all trying to talk. So that table is like, I don't know what you're saying. I'm not even gonna try to do this. And it's not gonna insert it.
I have one more question.
Mhm.
Are you only having to define the data, like the data type, if you're creating a table, or is it like common to see it within code where you're doing other tasks, like maybe you're aggregating something? Do you always have to like define the data type, or
No, the data type is defined on the front end.
okay?
So if I'm creating a table, I'm defining that table on the front end. Now going forward, anything else you do, like you said, aggregate, anything else that you do is going to be communicating with that data that's already defined.
Okay, gotcha.
Think about it like this, Kiana. You asking some good questions. I love it. Think about it like this. Let's say let's say you have like you're telling someone a recipe and you say, I need you to use heavy cream. I need you to use whatever those ingredients are. You telling them that up front. And then they go and they make whatever they need to make with the ingredients that you told it.
Okay, yeah, I got you now.
Yep.
Yeah, because like I only see this like sometimes, and I'm like, do I have to say this every time I call a certain column or row or whatever? Like, do I have to define what it is? So now that makes sense. So it's only like when you're basically creating tables and stuff.
But this what you need to do though, Kiana. If you got to treat it differently. And what I mean by that is, if I have a varchar, which is a string data type, I can't treat that varchar like I would a date. When I'm filtering that data and pulling that analysis, and it's actually good that you asked it because I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But so we can lead right into it. When you're analyzing the data, when you retrieving that data, you don't have to define it, but you got to treat it like what it is.
So yeah, I kind of automatically like the system knows it. So if you don't treat it the right way, it will like give you an error. So
Yes.
it's kind of like you gotta assume it and like I got you.
No, what you got to do is go and do your data investigation. And I'm gonna show you how to do that, but that's exactly what you need to do. Go and look at your data, and when you identify your data types, when you're actively doing your research, and when you actively identify, oh, okay, that's why it's throwing an error because it's an integer. It's because you went and did your data investigation, and you've been able to identify it, and that'll help you too.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, you got some good questions.
Yes, Kiana, you definitely asked a lot of good questions. That was a lot, some of my questions too. But also, I am a little still confused on the char versus binary.
Char versus binary. Oh, okay. So let's talk about that. Char is a fixed length string. Binary is a fixed length binary data, so it's just a different data type. But it's the length, the strength is the length is still fixed, but it's just a different data type. That's it. That's all.
Okay.
Yep. And Jackie, I'm glad you said something. I actually want you and Kiana to connect because y'all have like the same stories. But
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, that is the only difference.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question?
Yes, I have a question just because it's bugging me. What does the DBO stand for in the create table?
Database owner, and we'll talk about that when you get in a real environment. When you in the code, it's really good for you as well because you're very heavily exposed. When you get within SQL, we'll talk about it because it's a good remind me to talk about it, but it is it's your schema. Yep. Any other questions? See, that's what I'll be talking about.
Are we gonna get these notes somewhere, or just do we have to watch the video back? Because these are good notes.
You can have it. Text
Okay.
me, not text me, email me, and I'll give you access to it, Kiana.
Okay. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Or I think it might be stored in a dashboard. I think they're already pushed out there in your dashboard. I try to push them out there for you. But if not, just email me and I'll give it to you. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Now, for y'all, go ahead and connect. Well, y'all should be connected to your VM. Go ahead and click on SQL, which is this right here. This yellow block with the blue and green. This is Microsoft's SQL Server Management Studio. This is Microsoft SQL tool. If you are in a organization and they have a Microsoft shop, they run in Microsoft, this is what they're doing.
Is this what like most people use?
Mm-hmm. Yep. If you think about it, I've used this most of okay, there you go. I've used this most of my career. But I've also been dibbling and dabbling. Some people don't do Microsoft for whatever reason. But most organizations, if they're using Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, or either I'm gonna write it in the chat, T SQL, which is a dialect, this is literally what they're doing. I use it every day, even now. Also, and I'm gonna piggyback on what we talked about a minute ago with the different dialects of SQL. Some of you are already like applying for roles and on LinkedIn and things like that. And if you've probably noticed that in some of those job descriptions, they might have like PL SQL or T SQL or, whatever the case, they might have a different sort of dialect of SQL. That is just attributed to just a different type of SQL, like we were talking about a minute ago with those different dialects. It's just a different dialect of SQL. Now, does everybody connect? Does it look like this once you're on here? Okay, Nicole, I see you.
Yeah, it just looks like you might have like a few additional folders than I have.
Okay, Jackie. Oh, let me see your screen, Kiana. Oh, wait, is it you got it exposed or just broken down like that? Did you expand it?
Yeah, it's expanded.
Okay, let me see your screen. Make sure you're good first before we go.
I don't know if I'm supposed to have like exactly what you have.
Oh, you good. You good. You good. You good. You good. You good.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So this is Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. This is T SQL. I put the dialect in the chat, just so you can start being aware of what your capabilities actually are. So I talked about how different clients or different dialects of SQL, they might be slightly different, meaning you might have to write a semicolon after your syntax, or it might be case sensitive or something like that. In every single environment that you're going to be in some kind of way, shape, or form, you're going to have, it's going to be set up just like this. Meaning you'll have your Object Explorer over here, you'll have your different servers, you'll have all that. So let's talk about what is going on over here. This is your server. SQL Server has your version here, has your connection here. Your server is the brain of everything. It's the bread, it's the butter, however you want to look at it. If your server is down, you do not have access to your data, period. And that is extremely detrimental. When you get your role, it is not uncommon for you to have multiple environments or servers. They are just referred to as different environments. What I mean by that is, I'm going to type it in the chat. You might have a production environment. A production environment sounds exactly like what it sounds like. It's real data. It's data that is being used, it's being leveraged. That has to be correct. Any work that you are doing in the back end, whether you are developing, you are testing, you ain't gonna do it in production. You are not gonna test in production. Because if production fail or break, you're gonna be up the creek without a paddle. And if you are in an environment where you're heavily exposed to data, you're probably doing something like this already. So we got our production environment, we got our dev environment. It's just different ones. QA environment. These are sandboxes. This is not live. You go in there, you can break some, you can tear some up. Man, ain't nobody gonna know. So that is the different environments. Now, if you expand this here, you'll see all these different folders. This is what Kiana was talking about. You see all these different folders here. Expand your database folder. And these black boxes are, I don't know, tubes or something. These are databases. These are all your different databases. When you get in your environment, and I have more than y'all because like I was using this for like when I was crazy one time, it was finna get another master's, but I ain't crazy no more or something like that. But this is where your data is stored in a database. When you get your role, you will have multiple databases. And if you are using and leveraging data now, you're probably doing something similar already. These databases store relevant data. So for example, if I have like all my customer data might be in this database. If you're in healthcare, all my patient data might be here. All my whatever data might be stored collectively in certain groups. And they might not honestly even be named like customer. It might be named something like EDW or, just something random. So these are your databases. For this session here, let's go into our data analytics simplified database. So expand it. Once you expand that database, it's even more information. You got your diagrams, your tables, your views, your programmability, your security. This is where all of your data is stored in a database. So think about it like a little hierarchy. And every time you get in here, the more, and even when you hop in between sessions and practice, the more comfortable you're going to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to look at this data. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So we got our database. We expand our database. Now expand your tables. Here you have all of your tables. Remember how we said in a database, your data is stored in a table on-prem. This is your data in a table on-prem. As an analytic professional, one of the most valuable things you can do is when you get your role, your first like maybe 30 to 60 days, I ain't gonna say that long, maybe like 30 days, gonna be getting access to the environment, making sure you got the right permissions, making sure you got access to all the data, etc., etc. What else you need to be focusing on and doing in them first 30 to 45 days is quote unquote getting familiar with your data. Getting familiar with your data. What does that mean? That means knowing what data you have access to and understanding those data relationships, understanding those the data that is stored, how much data you have, if you can do something with it, whatever the case is. So how do you do that? Just a minute ago, we talked about data types. And I said, when your data is in your table, your data is defined. So we have our data types. Let's open up our enrollment table. Let's expand it just like this. Expand our enrollment table and then expand the columns. Now y'all see those columns, that data is defined. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 columns in that table. Now, let's right click this table and let's select our top 1,000 rows. That way, you can actually see your data. Just right click your table name and select your top 1,000 rows. We in our enrollments table. That way, you can actually have visibility to the data and you can start to make sense of things. We see that enrollment ID is an integer. We got integer data in there. Our student ID, that's an integer. Our course ID, that's an integer. Our enrollment date, that's a date. Everything looking like it's supposed to look. Now, also notice that when this data is defined, we also have these keys on here. You finna say something, Nicole?
It was bugging me.
What's
I was
up?
like, is that the darkened key, meaning that's the primary key?
Come through.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that. We got our keys here. This dark key, then we have it defined here is this PK. This is our primary key. That primary key is the unique identifier for that table. What does that mean? Every record in this column is unique. This is how I'm able to tell a unique record in my table. Ain't no duplicates. Your primary key cannot be a duplicate. Come through, Nicole. I love to see it. Now, if you go down here, you say something?
I was going to say, I always wondered about being able to determine what a primary key. Will it always be this easy to identify a primary key?
Do your data investigation and go and look at your actual data type.
Okay.
Because technically, if I look at this, once you start getting familiar and once let's say you're in data, this data set all the time, you have a baseline expectation of what this data is, you're going to be able to tell. Like it's going to come a point in time where you're going to be able to look at it and be like, well, that's the primary key. But you don't ever want to just assume. So just go and look. But you, in your heart of hearts, you going to know. But yeah, that is the unique identifier for that table. No two records are the same. No two records are the same. Now, y'all see, I didn't mean click on it. Y'all see this course ID. We have okay, Jackie. Now, y'all see a course ID. We have a FK. What does that mean? What do y'all think it means?
Foreign key.
Yep. That foreign key. If something is foreign, it is quote unquote not from there. That foreign key is a unique identifier for another table. You're not from here. You're not even from here. Like they say on Mean Girl. She doesn't even go here. You're not even from here. That foreign key is a unique identifier. It's a primary key somewhere else. So when you get into those data relationships, those foreign keys and those primary keys is the main component of how I'm able to tell those data relationships. What's a data relationship? If I'm related to this person, we got something in common. Data is the same way. There's something in common between you and I to make us related. Data is the same way. There's something in common between either one of those tables to make those tables related. And that thing that is related is the primary key and that foreign key. Now, let's get into data investigation. We have already exposed our enrollments table. We see our data. We have selected our top 1,000 rows in our enrollments table. What what other tables in this database are related to my enrollment table and how? How do you do that? Expand these tables and go and look at them columns. And you tell me, what is the data relationships between these tables?
Okay, the question you asked is, what are the, maybe I'm gonna simplify the question. What do these tables all have in common?
Yep. What's the data relationships? That's right. What are your data relationships? What other table is related to this enrollment table and how? Don't overthink that.
Yes.
Let me tell you. Okay, first things first.
What's name or
What you say?
is you're not good? Never mind. I've only looked at two so far.
Okay.
Course ID for the courses and enrollments.
Yep.
They share common columns.
Yep.
And student ID.
Yep.
For students and enrollments.
Yep.
So different tables have different relationships.
Yes.
Or different common columns.
Yes. Your table, when that data is stored in that database, those fields are defined. They're defined by data types, and they defined by primary keys. They're defined by relationships. So yes, that core understanding is going to help you in Python, Power BI, Excel does the same thing with like they pivot tables and stuff. It's gonna help you all the way around. So yeah, when you're doing your data relationships, I'm gonna type it in the chat.
I'll also say too, like at first, I didn't know like how like I see the table, but for whatever reason, like the icon that looks like a calendar a little bit. For some reason, I don't know what I was expanding, but I was not looking in the right place. So maybe I don't know if anybody else said.
Oh, you talking about the columns part?
Yeah, I didn't even. I knew we expanded the DBO enrollments, but when I went to go look at other tables, I don't know. I just couldn't find it. So
Yeah.
that's why it took me a minute too. So I don't know if anybody else had that issue.
Yeah. Those are, it's called data relationships or data dependencies. Data in this table is dependent upon this data in this table. They basically leaning in on each other. If I have one, you know, that data quality depends on that data is going to exist somewhere else as well. So yeah. Yep. So that is every time.
Can we go back?
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to put it in terms that don't make sense in my mind.
Let's talk.
What was the relationships? I mean, my thoughts when I see this is all student enrollment, and each of these tables is a component of a student enrollment, and it can be broken down, but that's how they're related. The student enrollment, the students, the course, the grades, the dates. But I know that's not the answer. So
That is the answer, Nicole. That is.
Oh.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Yes, yes, they are all components. They are all components. But in those separate components, there's overlap.
Okay.
That overlap is that data relationship.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Yep. So in your head, what you got in your, you would say, Priscilla?
That's what I was starting to say, but I just thought I would be so wrong. So it makes sense now.
Yeah. In your head, yes, yes. Each of these tables are separate. This a table, this a table, this a table. They all have similar data, whatever. But each of these tables also, there's an overlap or a relationship between each of these tables based on their commonality. So yep, you said it in your head like that, but that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
They're all separate tables. They all are house student data. However, they all have a common overlap to establish that data relationship. And the reason that's important, we actually gonna get into that in session 3. But I always like to introduce that to y'all early on so that in these sessions, you it becomes natural to you to start creating relationships between tables, because that is how you're going to have to join your tables. What I mean by that, let's say I need data out of this table and data out of that table. I can't just be randomly throwing them together. I got to make sense of them. So that data relationship is going to help you be able to establish that commonality. So you can join those multiple tables together while still maintaining your data integrity. I'm not giving a one student an F and they really supposed to have a B. I gotta find that commonality. So yes, you are absolutely correct. The only thing you were missing was the overlap. What makes them related?
Okay.
Yep. Any other
That makes
questions? Huh?
that makes sense. So is it kind of like the old school bubbles when you had the
Yep.
circles and had a circle in the middle?
Yep.
Okay.
That is, Jackie, that is how I visualize it in my head. And when I teach you all the joints, that is how, like, I literally, when I'm explaining the joints, I draw the circles in the air. Like, to me, that is the most concrete way to relate it. Like, it's that Venn diagram. Both of these tables contain this field. This is the overlap. This is the relationship.
Okay.
Yep. I love it. But yep. So when you get in here, when you are doing your when you get in here practicing, when you are in the position to when you are starting to interview, there might be times to where you might have to do a tech assessment, which is why I am not big on y'all memorizing. Don't memorize stuff because it ain't gonna matter. Be able to apply it and talk through it. Because when you are doing your tech assessments, be vocal about doing your data investigation. Okay, I'm going to look at my tables. I see that my course table is related to my enrollments table on my course ID. Literally say it, because that shows that you understand data relationships on a deeper level. And if you can understand data relationships, you good, because it's going to help you everywhere. It's going to help you everywhere. Even if you think of what you're currently doing now in your day to day. If you are not in SQL, if you in Excel, if you somewhere, you're establishing those data relationships between that data to make sense of it. And you probably are naturally just doing it and not calling it a thing. But when you start interviewing and when you start going through those processes, say it out loud. Literally say it, because it's such a huge important component of data analysis. The data exploration slash investigation stage, that is a huge component, because it's going to help you all the way around. And I've been on interviews and things like that with people, and I could tell, like, you just kind of regurgitating stuff. If I threw you out there, you gonna drown, because you don't know how to like do it in real life. So you being vocal about the ability to say, okay, well, now I'm doing my data relationships, and now I've noticed this relationship, and now I've noticed it. That's a huge component of understanding data. Yep. Any questions on it? All right. Now let's go. Where my Okay. Let's get into what our one of our primary components of today was the introduction into data, but also DML language, the data manipulation language. Because once that data is in that database, you still have to deal with it. You still have to work with it. You still have to transform it. You still got to extract that value from that data. Holding that data ain't worth nothing. What did you do with it? That is where that DML language comes from. The purpose of DML language is to manipulate data, retrieve data. We're pulling this data out. That is the DML language. We got the insert, update, delete, select. This is what we're doing within SQL. Now, the 4 DML languages are select, insert, update, and delete. And what we're going to do in this session is we're going to do all of these. We're going to do all of these. Oh, Nicole, I forgot. I'm going to talk to you about the schemas once we get back over here and select. Okay, so we have our select statement. Y'all, what my mouse said, y'all? Okay, here we go. Y'all have seen this before. Select. I got star up here as an example, but don't be putting star. Don't do that. Select. Your star is a wild card. That means you're pulling all your data from all your columns. And that's why we don't do that. We only pull what we need. I had an interview, the same interview. No, it was an interview Tuesday or Thursday. I don't know. I'll be interviewing. But one of the questions that was asked in the interview was, if we are like writing queries, what are some ways that we can protect the environment of the database? Because that's really big over there. And I said, primarily, one issue that I currently see now within my role is that a lot of data analysts and a lot of our reporting analysts are literally going through and they like select star from their tables, and they pulling all these columns and all these fields, and you only need like 8. So why are you doing that for? So in that, they're pulling all this unnecessary data, and it's causing strain for no reason. So always be specific about your columns, and we're going to talk about that when you pull your data. So we got select from. You are always pulling data from somewhere. Always. You're not pulling it out of a hat. You're not pulling it out of thin air. You're pulling it from a data source. So we got our select. I'm basically saying, select, give me this. Only type in or only keep, because you're not going to type it in, you're just going to keep what you need. Only keep what you need and get rid of what you do not need. And I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So that select retrieves data from the database. That is what it does. You go to the store, you got your basket. I want this. I'm selecting this. I'm selecting that. I'm selecting it. From where? You selecting it from a shelf, from a table, from a refrigerator. You getting it from somewhere. Selecting these columns from this table. So in this, we did our enrollments table. We selected our top 1,000. That top 1,000 is a limit. It's only gonna give us 1,000 records. These are our columns, column, 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 column. You notice that these commas are in the front of my columns. It's gonna automatically do that all the time. It's gonna keep your data just like that all the time. We pulling our data from where? From this table. Now, Nicole asked about the DBO. Let's talk about that DBO. When we select our top 1,000 rows, it's going to automatically pull that data from that table. We are selecting our top 1,000 rows. That's selecting that data from that table. So here, from Data Analytics Simplified, this is the database. It automatically knows it's pulling from the database because you pulled it from there, so it already know. DBO, this is a schema. It is called a schema. Naturally, it's going to be DBO. That's what it's going to automatically be when the tables are created. However, there might be times in organizations to where in your database, you might have 80 tables. And with me keeping my data organized, I might have 8 or 10 tables that supports a data migration project. So with that, I want to be able to separate them 8 tables. So I might change the schema to like data migration or something. And it's just gonna group them tables together. Their schema basically keeps your tables organized in your database. It groups all the schema types together. Enrollments, this is your actual table name. And if you like highlight it, it'll pop up what it is. Also notice that when you select your top 1,000 rows, it's going to throw them brackets on there. The reason why it puts those brackets on there is because there are times to where your column name might actually be a reserved word. What do I mean by that? You see how these words in SQL, they're changing colors. That means that word is reserved for a certain type of function, or it's going to do something. But there might be times to where your column names might actually just be a reserved word too. But these brackets set it up to where it's like, oh, never mind, it's a column. I know this is a column. So the brackets basically cancel it out and say, okay, well, this is a column. Python does the same thing. Excel got the same thing. Power BI has the same thing. Every programming language and everything has reserved words. We have the same thing. We have certain words that we only say for certain things. It ain't no different. So this here, we are selecting these top 1,000 rows from this table. Now, let's get rid of this top 1,000 because that top 1,000 is a limit. So let's get rid of the top 1,000 and re-execute. You'll be able to see how many rows you got. We got 20,000 rows of data in this table.
I'm sorry. How did you delete the...
Just highlight it like this and delete it. Just highlight it and then like delete it like regular.
Okay, and then execute.
Yep, right at the top.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now in this, we got rid of that limit. That top 1,000 is called a limit. So we're basically limiting the amount of data that we have in our output. This is the output. This is what this is the output of our code. Let's say we don't want course ID anymore. We're not going to delete that column. All we're going to do is put our 2 dashes on there to comment it out, and then we just gonna re-execute. Don't delete any columns, because let's say you're performing an analysis and you got to come back and, oh, okay, I need it now. Now you got to go over there and go and look at the columns and retype it, and now you can done misspell some, and you got a underscore and it's not supposed to be there. It's just a mess. So we don't want to use it anymore. We just gonna comment it out. Them 2 dashes, it doesn't exist. I want it again. I just do it again. Anything we have in our select statement is going to show up in our output. Documentation. Huh?
Can I ask? I'm sorry.
No.
That
Nicole?
Okay, so no, that was neat. But now my question is, anything we're doing, I guess that's the difference between production and sandbox, because say for instance, I did delete course ID and didn't do the what do you call that?
Comment out.
It out. Would it permanently remove course ID from this database?
So if you use a quote unquote delete statement, it will.
Okay.
But we are essentially retrieving data. I got a bottle of water. My data is stored. This is my data in my bottle of water. I'm going to get out what I need. Oh, soup is a better example. I got a bowl of soup. The soup is my data. I'm only going to get out what I want. I want, I don't know, meat or something. I don't know. I'm only getting out what I want. But guess what? That soup ain't going to change. I'm only getting out what I want. That's what you're doing. You're getting out what you want, but that bowl of soup ain't going to change.
Okay, I know what my question is.
Let's
is
go.
This the best practice?
What, commenting out?
Commenting it out.
Yes.
Okay.
When you, best practice, when you are in an environment, data investigation, when you're writing and the reason being, Nicole, is because your code, your syntax, that's yours. So when you're writing your code, you're doing it to answer a question, to figure something out. So your code is your code, but you're using it to answer the question to the best of your ability. So if you wouldn't have you can't you selecting data and commenting out. What my oh, there go my mouse. You commenting you commenting out columns is not doing anything to the data that's stored in the database. You pulling out what you want from this bowl of soup ain't gonna hurt the bowl of soup. The bowl of soup's still there. You pulling out what you want, and when you're done with it, you can put it back. And that bowl of soup remains untouched. You ain't mess with the bowl. You're only pulling out what you need.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You picking up what I'm putting down?
No, I get it.
Okay.
The reason why I was asking is because my first instinct would have been to delete it.
Yep. And it's not, if I delete a column, it ain't gonna do nothing. It's not gonna break anything. But let's say,
that's what I mean. Like,
yeah,
will it permanently?
This is just your code. This is just the language that you're using to communicate to pull that data. But you deleting grade out of your code is not changing the way that grade is stored in that database.
Okay.
Yep. Best practice, comment it out. And if I need it again, I'm gonna bring it back in there. And it's just easier to do.
Easier to remove.
Yep. Yep. Then to like, yep.
Okay.
And whenever you, who is that, Kiana?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I know you said when we're doing the top 1,000, well, I guess it's like a script or whatever. It pulls the brackets around it, but is this just a part of the T SQL dialect, or is that in general? Do you always have to use the brackets, or only for a reserved word?
You don't have to always use the brackets, but it is
Okay.
automatically put in there because there are times to where, let me use an example. First of all, it's hundreds of reserved words. But let's say you have a column name that is called, mm, what's a good example? You have a column name that is called like process or something. Like you have a column name that is also a reserved word in SQL. Yes, this is a reserved word, but I also have a field within my table that is called this. So those brackets come through and they say, but wait. This is not a reserved word. This is a column. So if I put those columns around it, I mean, those brackets around it, it's going to say this is a column. Don't get it confused with a reserved word. It's basically what it's saying.
So, in your opinion, what's best practice? So, when I'm selecting columns, do you think I should always use brackets?
If that is, yep, if that is how your system automatically does it, because when you select your top 1,000 rows like this, it's automatically going to populate those brackets. The way that I do it, I keep it consistent. Like if I'm going to come down here and I'm going to start filtering data, I would say something like where, grade. Like I keep my stuff because I just like the way it looks.
Okay, so see, this is something that's like different for me. So, if that's something that we should just always use, I'm fine with that. Also, too, I've noticed like your table name is like really long. Are there instances where your table name doesn't show up like this and it just says enrollments?
It'll, if you always go through from the actual table in your Object Explorer and select your top 1,000, it's gonna pull the database in a schema. But if you were to just go from a blank query and like write your code, which in real life you're not gonna do anyway. But if you were to go from a blank script and like write your code from here, if I was to say select my grade from enrollments, it'll pull as well. But in real life, it's gonna be like select your top 1,000 rows and then get rid of what you don't need, keep what you need.
See, this is why I'm glad I'm here because in these practice like little like environments, and I've never seen it structured this way.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, all right.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Think about it like this. If I'm going directly from my Object Explorer and I'm selecting my top 1,000 rows, it's going to give me all the information for whatever I pull out. And that information is the database, is the schema, is the table name. It's going to give it to me. And it's going to say, I know for a fact that this is a field because she pulled it from the table. So, yep. Any questions on that? Oh, documentation. Any questions on that before we get into documentation? Okay. Documentation. Always document what you're doing. Why? Because like you gonna forget. Like somebody might call you, you might start playing Candy Crush on your phone, you might be in a meeting, you might like watch some on TV, whatever the case is. You might do an analysis and then save your script, and then 6 months from now come back and be like, I don't even know what I was doing. You might have to share your script with somebody else, or it's your script is saved as a stored procedure, and then you go back and you're like, I don't know what I was doing. What was I even doing? Document what you're doing. To document your code, do your 2 dashes and just write what you're doing. Whatever you do, it doesn't have to be fancy. It's for you. What are you doing in your analysis? Another way to think of documentation is if you are defining KPIs and you say, okay, well, the definition of done is this. The definition of done is we have X, Y, and Z. or this KPI is defined by the amount of people that went to this space, or whatever that KPI definition is. Just write your definition up there in your code so that you have it. Always document what you're doing when you are doing your technical assessments. Talk through what you're doing. Okay, I'm doing my data analysis. I see these data relationships, and document what you're doing. All right. Filtering our data. So how I told you, everything in SQL goes back to tables or columns. So if I'm filtering my data, I am filtering that data on a column. So I'm selecting these columns. Let's say I don't want enrollment data. I'm gonna get rid of enrollment date. I'm selecting these columns from this table. I'm filtering my data. Let's say I only want students who made the grade of a B. What column answers that question?
Grade.
Yep. So I'm selecting my columns from this table, and I would say where. Where is a filter? I'm filtering out data, so I would say where. And Kiana, this to answer your question, you asked do I use brackets, and I'm like, if it's set up like that, I just keep mine because like I like the way it looks. So I would say where grade equals B. Now notice I put these strings, these quotes on here. That is because that data type is a car, it's a character, it's a quote unquote string, it's a string of data. So in here, I have to put my quotes around it to make it a string.